Hi, I'm Danny and these are my Diecast Disasters. In this video I'm going to be doing a post-apocalyptic makeover on a Matchbox Speed Kings number K-21, the Mercury Cougar dragster. This car was very kindly sent to me by Rob at Matchbox Garage. He's actually sent me quite a few cool cars, so stay tuned to see some of them getting made over. Matchbox produced this car from 1971 until 1973. Of course, these Kings models are a little bit larger at 1/43rd scale. Matchbox did also make a 1/64th scale version of this car. With the car off the turntable, we can take a closer look at it. It's all there, it's just in pretty worn out condition. Missing a bit of paint there and quite a bit of corrosion on the casting. Also missing plenty of chrome off the motor. Worn out old wheels. The metal base there is pretty heavily oxidized. It's got cool opening doors. Nice detailed interior there, and the windscreen's in good condition. So we'll crack on and take the car apart. There's 2 rivets to be drilled out. Then off comes the base and I can take the interior and the windscreen out. And the motor was just kind of held in by some tabs, so I could pop that out pretty easily. And there we go, there's the body of the car ready for paint stripping. There's the paint all wrinkling off it with the paint stripper. And here it is after paint stripping. All the paint's pretty much gone there, except for some sort of stained bits where the oxidation's really bad. Now I'll pop these wheels and axles out from the little plastic suspension tabs there. Try not to break off the little plastic clips that actually hold the axles in place. And now I can give the castings a good clean up with a wire wheel on my Dremel. And this will get rid of all that oxidation and any paint scraps that are remaining on there. And so here they go after burnishing. We'll just take a closer look at the car here. You can see there's a couple of badly corroded areas. Normally I'd tidy those up, but as this is a post-apocalyptic car and it's going to be all rusted up, they'll actually look really good. So I'm just drilling and tapping these posts here so I can put the car together with some little screws later on. Now I'll move on and do some fabricating. I start with some louvers there and some mesh over the windows. Next, some big spikes on the back there and some chains. And a few more spikes around the rear wheels there. Make a bull bar sort of thing on the front here with some styrene. And so here we are after all the fabrication's been added. Now I can move on and start painting it. I start out with a black primer over both the pieces. I'm not being too particular about anything. And then I hit them with some burnt iron. So that's nice dark metal base for me to start on. Next I hit both pieces with some German red-brown primer. Now I'm going to add a cool rust effect to the car. So I've just got a piece of sponge here, and I've got 4 different colours of paint. There's a red brown, there's 2 other browns, and there's an orange rust effect paint. And I basically just use the sponge to dab on the different colours of paint, going after a sort of a thick stippling effect. And here it is when I've finished. And I repeat this process on the base, although not so heavy, just sort of around the outsides of the base there, and I focused on the bull bar. And here it is once it's dried. As you can see, that's quite a nice realistic rust effect. Next I apply some metallic weathering powder to bring out some of the details on the car. I'm using Tamiya gunmetal, silver and metallic blue weathering powders. Next, some black wash. I apply this quite heavily to the louvers there just to stain them a dark colour, and I also add washes to the panel lines here and there. Here you can see where I've detailed the front bumper and lights there. Here's the base once I've added a matte varnish to it. Next I apply a few rust pigments here and there on the body of the car. And then I gave all of this a coat of matte varnish to seal it all. Here are some drums that I've made out of some aluminium from a Coca-Cola tin. I've painted these up really rusty as well. There we go, I've stuck them onto the boot of the car. Here are some little skulls that I've made out of modelling clay. And I stuck some of these around the rear of the car as well. I've also made a bit of tarp out of some tissue paper and glue there and painted it blue. And there's where I've detailed the rear lights as well. Now I can move on to the engine here. First of all, I'm going to get rid of that chrome off it with some hot water and caustic soda. And here it is after that treatment. Actually hasn't removed all of the chrome. Must be really sort of melted into the plastic or something. Anyway, not to worry. I give it a coat of black primer. It's quite a nice thick coat to help smooth it out. Then I painted it in Vallejo metal colour steel. I'm just finishing it with some silver weathering powder here. This will just bring out the details a little bit. And of course I sealed it with some satin varnish. Here's the interior. It's pretty grubby. It's looking pretty post-apocalyptic already. Anyway, I gave it a wash in some hot soapy water. And then I painted it with a satin black. I gave it a rub over with some metallic weathering powder. I was kind of trying to avoid the seats, but it's a bit difficult. Then I added some thick piles of rust pigments. There we go, they're just on there dry. And then I sprayed this over with some matte varnish from a distance so that it didn't blow the pigment off. So that sort of sets the pigment in place. Next I painted in some little tears in the seats. I printed out some post-apocalyptic things on some A4 paper. So there's a map and a couple of newspapers there and some Twinkies packets. And here you can see I've sort of scrunched them up a bit and glued them into the interior there with some PVA glue. Onto the windscreen. There's not much wrong with it. There's a tiny crack in it, but it's not so visible. Definitely won't matter with all the mesh and stuff over it. It is a bit scuffed. I guess I could leave it like that, but I give it a bit of a sand anyway, and then a good polish. I think glass really gets dirty or cracked. It doesn't really get scuffed. So here it is after a polish. And now I'm going to add some dust weathering powders, and I'm going to be focusing on the outside of the windows. And on the front windscreen here, I'm going to use a clean cotton bud just to mark in where the windscreen wiper blade marks would be. Here are the awful original Speed Kings wheels. Good God, they look terrible. I'm going to be replacing them with these cool aftermarket ones. They're both green light ones, I think. They're looking way too clean though, so I give them a good rust up. So there we go, there are all the parts of our Speed Kings Mercury Cougar, refurbished, repainted and ready to go back together. So while I'm furiously welding that together in the background, let's just take a look back and be reminded of what we started with. Here is our scruffy looking little Mercury Cougar, all the way from Rob at Matchbox Garage in England. Looking pretty paint chipped and corroded there, scruffy worn out old wheels. But I think rather than bring this car back to new looking, we're going to be driving it off into the wastelands and a post-apocalyptic sunset. And here it is, our custom post-apocalyptic Mercury Cougar Eliminator dragster. It's been heavily rusted there by the salty post-apocalyptic dust. Whoever's owned it, done it up a bit with a meaty bull bar there, some big fat off-road wheels. They've caged over the windows and put a few spikes here and there. And they got some big fuel drums on the back. Or maybe they got water in them, who knows. They've got some old map they must have found, and a couple of old newspapers about the bombs, and the empty packets of some of the Twinkies that they've been eating. Because as everybody knows, that's all that's going to be left after the apocalypse. Twinkies and iguana bits. So I'm really happy with how this has come out. It's nice to do a slightly larger car in the post-apocalyptic Mad Max style. And I really like that new rust effect I'm using. I think it looks a bit more realistic. You can let me know what you think in the comments down below. And once again, a massive thanks to Rob from Matchbox Garage for sending this over to me. If you haven't checked out his channel yet, you should have. I'll leave a link in the description down below. Thanks heaps to everyone for watching and supporting the channel and all the great comments and likes on my videos. Extra special thanks to my awesome Patreon supporters who help to support the channel through Patreon. If you'd like to join them, you can check out my Patreon page. There's a link in the description below. Thanks heaps for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you'd like to see more similar stuff, remember to subscribe and click the bell. Give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends.